At our 20th anniversary dinner, I excused myself to use the restroom and overheard my wife tell her brother on the phone I've already transferred most of his inheritance to accounts he can't access once the house is sold next month. I'm filing for divorce and taking the kids to California. We had just renewed our vows that morning. I returned to the table, ordered champagne, and said nothing, but this morning she was screaming outside my house. I'm typing this from my bedroom with the blinds closed, while my soon-to-be ex is still throwing a tantrum on my front lawn. My hands are literally shaking, but I need to get this out before I explode. Bear with me, this is going to be a long one. So yesterday was our 20th anniversary, 20 years with this woman. We even renewed our vows in a small ceremony at her parents' backyard that morning. Nothing fancy, just family and a few friends. Marera looked beautiful in a simple white dress, not her original wedding gown. She'd complained last month that it didn't fit anymore. Our kids, Eric 16 and Serenity 13, stood next to us looking bored but at least they showed up. I actually got choked up repeating those vows, talking about our journey together through good times and bad. Little did I know, right, the day started normally enough. Woke up to Marera bringing me coffee in bed, which should have been my first clue something was off, because she never does that. Then the ceremony, lunch with the in-laws, and then we had a few hours before our dinner reservation at Camello's, this overpriced Italian place downtown she's been wanting to try. During those free hours, I noticed Maya was glued to her phone more than usual. When I asked who she was texting, she quickly said just finalizing some anniversary surprise details, with this weird smile that didn't reach her eyes. I figured maybe she was planning something special for after dinner and let it go. For context, my mom passed away 3 months ago after a long battle with cancer. Dad died last year. I was an only child, so I inherited everything: their house savings, dad's vinyl collection, mom's jewelry, the whole deal. Not millionaire money, but definitely enough to make a difference in our lives. We've been talking about using some of it for the kids' college funds and maybe a long overdue kitchen renovation. Dinner started out fine. Marera was being super attentive, touching my arm, laughing at all my jokes. The waiter brought us complimentary PRCO for our anniversary. I remember thinking how lucky I was. Even though things had been rough since Mom died, Marera hadn't been the most supportive during Mom's final weeks, always finding excuses not to visit the hospice with me, but I chalked it up to her being uncomfortable around illness. About halfway through the main course, I excused myself to use the restroom. The men's room was at the end of this narrow hallway past the kitchen. As I was walking back, I noticed Mera had stepped into the same hallway with her phone pressed to her ear. She didn't see me, because she was facing the other way, talking in that intense whisper voice people use when they don't want to be overheard. I was about to call out to her when I heard her say my name, so I instinctively stepped back around the corner. I know eavesdropping isn't cool, but something in her tone made the hair on my neck stand up. Russell has no idea. She was saying I've already transferred most of his inheritance to accounts he can't access once the house is sold next month. I'm filing for divorce and taking the kids to California. I legit thought I was having a stroke or something. Like my vision actually blurred for a second. Yes, Canon, I know it's been the plan all along, but now it's actually happening. She continued. He's been so wrapped up in his grief over his mom that he hasn't noticed anything. The real estate agent said we should have multiple offers by next week. Real estate agent, our house wasn't even on the market. The kids will adjust, she said after a pause. Eric might be difficult at first, but I've been talking up the California school, and you know how close Serenity and I are. Plus they barely see Russell anyway since he's always working or was taking care of his mom, taking care of my dying mother. Sorry for the inconvenience, Marera. Don't worry about the timing. She went on the vow renewal this morning, was actually perfect. It'll make him look even more clueless when this all comes out. Plus no judge will believe he didn't know about the house sale when we just recommitted to each other. Let that sink in. My wife renewed our vows as a legal strategy. One must have made a noise because she suddenly turned around. I ducked back into the bathroom hallway, heart pounding so hard I could feel my pulse in my eyeballs. I heard her heels clicking back toward our table. I waited maybe 2 minutes, splashed cold water on my face, and somehow managed to walk back like nothing had happened. She smiled at me, asked if I wanted to share the tiramisu. I don't know how I made it through the rest of that dinner. I ordered a bottle of champagne because I didn't know what else to do. My brain was literally buffering. I kept looking at her face, this face I've woken up next to for 20 years, and wondering who the this person really was. She kept checking her phone under the table, probably texting her brother more details about how she was destroying my life while I paid for her overpriced pasta on the drive home. She kept trying to hold my hand over the console. I let her because what the actual else was I supposed to do? I needed time to think. My head Was spinning with questions. How long had she been planning this? How much money had she already taken? Where was she finding a place in California? Had she been unhappy all this time? When we got home she was all over me trying to initiate anniversary sex. I faked a migraine, first time I've ever turned down sex in our marriage, and said I needed to take something and lie down. She looked annoyed but said she understood while she was in the bathroom getting ready for bed. I checked our joint accounts on my phone, cleaned out just enough left for bills and groceries. I opened our safe where I'd been keeping some of my mom's jewelry I couldn't bear to look at yet empty, my dad's watches that I was saving for Eric gone. I waited until she fell asleep, then went downstairs and opened my laptop. Turns out my loving wife had been busy. I found emails with a real estate agent about our house listed last week as coming soon, communications with a school district in San Diego, and an email thread with some dude named Marcus about a fresh start that made my stomach turn. I spent the night making calls, first to my buddy Steven, who let me crash at his place for a few hours while I sorted my head out, then to my sister Anna, who lives a few hours away. By 6 a.m. I had a locksmith at the house changing every lock. I'd already packed a bag with essential documents and irreplaceable items. When Mera woke up and realized I wasn't there, she started blowing up my phone. I didn't answer. I was at the bank when it opened at 9 a.m. explaining the situation. Then I called a lawyer, Joan, who said she could see me at 11. I went back to the house around 10 o'clock knowing Marera would be at her yoga class, grabbed more of my stuff in the kids' important document, left a note taped to her vanity mirror that just said I heard everything at the restaurant, lawyer up, and then I left, went straight to Joan's office where I laid everything out. She was typing notes so fast I could barely keep up. She helped me file emergency motions to freeze the remaining assets and prevent the house sale. I was sitting in my car in Joan's parking lot when Maya's first hysterical voicemail came through. She'd gone home, found the locks changed, and my note, the voicemail, was just her screaming about how I couldn't do this, how I was overreacting, how she could explain everything. I blocked her number and drove back to the house. I needed to be there. When Eric and Serenity got home from school, they deserved to hear what was happening not from their mothers. Twisted. When I pulled into our driveway, there she was pounding on our front door, mascara streaking down her face, screeching like a banshee. She hadn't seen me yet. I sat in my car for a minute watching this stranger who'd been planning to take everything, my kids, my house, my inheritance from my parents who worked their whole lives to leave something for their grandchildren. As I'm typing this, she's still out there now, sitting on the porch making tearful phone calls, probably to Cannon or maybe to __. Marcus. The neighbors are definitely getting a show. My phone is blowing up with texts from friends asking what's going on. Eric called about 20 minutes ago asking why mom is sending him frantic texts about me having a breakdown. The manipulation has already started tonight. I'm picking up the kids from their after-school activities before she can, then I'm laying it all out, the money, the California plan, all of it, not looking forward to crushing their world, but I refuse to let her spin this narrative. This morning she was screaming outside my house, by tonight she'll realize I'm just getting started. Update first off, holy __. You guys, the support on Cheat Exposed blew up my notifications. I didn't expect so many people to care about my train wreck of a life some of you called BS, and honestly I wish you were right. Thanks for the awards and DMS offering legal advice. Special shout out to the 3 divorce attorneys who sent me their contact info. I'm good with Joan for now, but appreciate it. Picking up where I left off there, I was sitting in my car watching Mera have a complete meltdown on our front lawn like she was auditioning for a reality show. The neighbor across the street, nosy Mrs. Peterson, who's been judging our parenting since Eric was in diapers, was casually watering plants that didn't need watering. Great. I finally got out of the car and Marera spotted me. The screaming stopped immediately. Her face did this weird transformation from rage crying to relief. She literally ran toward me with her arms out like we were in some airport reunion scene. I sidestepped her hug attempt, which made her stumble in her fancy sandals. She always overpays for that. When the gaslighting Olympics began, according to Marera, I completely misunderstood her conversation with Cannon. The money transfers were just reorganizing our finances for tax purposes in May, and California was for a potential family vacation. She wanted to surprise me with the house wasn't being sold, just appraised to refinance. Y'all, she looked me dead in the eyes while spewing this BS. 20 years together and I never realized what an incredible liar I am. I told her I'd seen the emails, all of them, including the with Marcus. Her face went from fake concern to ghost white so fast I thought she might faint. Then came the tears, not the angry ones from before, but the calculated ones she uses when she wants something. Started talking about how lonely she'd been while I was caring for my mom, how she made one mistake with Marcus, but it didn't mean anything. One mistake that apparently required months of detailed planning and stealing my dead parents' money. Got it, I told her. She Had 30 minutes to get whatever she needed from the house while I supervised, then she needed to leave. She switched tactics again. Now I was scaring her, and not acting like myself. I laughed in her face, told her she was right, the old Russell would have believed her lies, and tried to fix a marriage she'd already demolished. When we got inside, she headed straight for the bedroom closet, where we keep our documents safe. Too bad I'd already emptied it. The look on her face when she realized I'd beaten her to it, almost worth the price of admission to this nightmare. While she frantically threw clothes into a suitcase, I checked my phone and saw 10 missed calls from Cannon. Interesting timing. Apparently Big Bro was concerned about his sister's mental health and wanted to understand what was happening. Sure dude, I didn't call him back. Instead I texted Eric to meet me at the Starbucks near his school after last period. Sent the same to Serenity. Marrera saw me texting and demanded to know if I was contacting the kids. Told her I wasn't going to let her poison them against me before they heard the truth. That set off another round of crying and accusations. When her 30 minutes were up, she refused to leave, started talking about her legal rights to the house. That's when I played my first, showed her the documents Joan had prepped detailing the financial fraud and unauthorized transfer of inherited assets which are not considered marital property in our state. Mentioned that criminal charges were a possibility. She left not quietly, but she left. Meeting the kids was rough, I'm not going to lie. I almost buckled seeing their confused faces. Eric had that guarded teenager look, while Serenity was on the verge of tears. Before I even said anything, I didn't dump everything on them at once. That would have been just explained that Mom and I were having serious problems, that some money issues come up, and that they'd be staying with me at the house for now while we sorted things out. Eric saw through the sugar-coating, immediately asked straight up if we were getting divorced. Smart kid. I said probably yes. Serenity started crying, which tore my heart out. Eric put his arm around her. This kid, who usually acts like his sister, his radioactive, actually comforted her. Nearly lost it myself seeing. Then Marrera started blowing up their phones. Eric read his messages out loud. According to Mother of the Year, I was having a stress breakdown after Grandma died, had stolen money from our accounts, and was making up stories about her. She told them to come to Aunt Anna's where she was staying and not to be alone with me because I was unpredictable. The nerve. Eric looked confused, but Serenity was getting scared. I did the only thing I could, showed them some of the evidence, the real estate listing their mother had created without telling anyone, the apartment inquiry emails from San Diego, the bank transfers, not the Marcus stuff they didn't need, that image of their mom. The drive home was silent. Neither kid knew what to say, and honest, neither did I. When we got to the house, they both went straight to their rooms. Can't blame them. While they processed, I went into full detective, pulled up our cell phone account and downloaded Myra's call logs for the past 6 months, found dozens of calls to a San Diego number that had to be Marcus, checked our Amazon order history, and found a Kindle book purchased by Marrera titled Co-Parenting After a Contentious Divorce, purchased 3 months ago. The hits kept coming. I logged into our rarely used family iPad and found she hadn't signed out of her Gmail hundreds of emails I hadn't seen yet. The most damning was from her best friend Lauren, with the subject line Russell's mom's funeral survival strategy. The email was all about how to get through the day and keep up appearances until the exit plan was ready. These people were strategizing about how Marrera should act at my mother's funeral. Around 8 p.m. the doorbell rang. There stood Cannon with his typical smug face, behind him a police officer. According to them, I had illegally evicted Maya from her residence and was withholding her necessary medical items. Complete BS. She doesn't take any regular medication. Luckily I'd anticipated something like this. Showed the officer the deed to the house in my name, only we never added Mirror after I inherited it from my parents, plus the documentation of financial fraud. Mentioned that my lawyer had already filed emergency orders that morning. The officer, to his credit, quickly realized he was being used for a domestic dispute and advised Cannon that this was a civil matter. As they were leaving, Cannon tried to push past me into the house. I blocked the doorway, and he had the balls to threaten me. Said his sister knows things about you that would make your kids hate you forever. I laughed and told him to go back to helping his sister steal from widowers. The officer, who was still on the walkway, turned around at that. Cannon, shut up real quick. The next morning, today, I took the kids to school myself, then went to the bank again. Turns out Mera had opened 3 new accounts I didn't know about because we were still married, and in a community property state. The bank manager reluctantly let me see the activity. Nearly $300,000 transferred over the past 2 months, almost all of what I'd inherited. The good news, she hadn't managed to wire it out of the bank yet, just moved it to her private accounts. I showed the manager the court filing from Joan, and they froze those accounts pending the emergency hearing scheduled for tomorrow. I was feeling pretty satisfied until I checked Facebook during lunch. Somehow in the span of 24 hours, Marrera had contacted virtually everyone we know with her version of events. According to mutual friends, concerned messages, I'd had some kind of breakdown after Mom died, became financially abusive, and was now holding the kids hostage, and Making crazy accusations. Several of our friends were already taking her side, the same friends who'd smiled and taken photos at our vow renewal 2 days ago. But here's where Mera miscalculated. She thought everyone would just believe her because she's always been the social one in our relationship. She didn't count on my sister Anna, who has receipts of everything. Anna had been suspicious of Maya's behavior during Mom's illness and had been quietly documenting things. She unleashed hell in the group chat, sharing screenshots of Maya's apartment hunting during my mother's final days and her complaints about having to pretend to care about his dying mom. By dinner time the tide was turning. Even Lauren Mears' ride or die sent me a private message apologizing and saying she didn't know the whole story. Too little too late. Lauren, throughout all this chaos I kept checking on the kids. Eric was angry but holding it together. Serenity was quieter than I've ever seen her. They'd both been texting with their mom and I made it clear I wouldn't stop them from seeing her if they wanted to. Surprisingly, neither took me up on it. Eric actually said something that broke my heart and made me proud. Simultaneous: Dad, I love Mom, but I don't like who she is right now. Just as things were calming down, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Marcus. We need to talk about Marera. The look on Mera's face when I walked into that courtroom tomorrow morning with 3 folders of evidence was going to be worth every second of our 20-year marriage. But what happened next? That's when things got really final. Update: sorry for the wait. Cheat exposed. Fam, these past few weeks have been intense. Finally have a minute to update while the kids are at my sister's place for the weekend, sitting here drinking coffee from a mug Serenity made me that says, Dad, at least you're not Mom. Kids got a savage sense of humor I never knew about. So where were we? Oh right, Marcus texted me. Bet you didn't see that plot twist coming. Neither did I. Stared at that message for like 20 minutes before responding. Part of me wanted to tell this home wrecker to go pound sand, but my curiosity won out. We agreed to meet at this dingy Denny's off the highway, neutral territory where nobody we knew would see us. Real cloak and dagger vibes. Marcus was nothing like I'd imagined. Based on Mira's taste, I expected some smooth talking Chad type. Instead he was this ordinary looking dude with a receding hairline and dad bod worse than mine. He looked nervous, fidgeting with his coffee cup like it might explode. The first words out of his mouth floored me. He apologized, said he'd had no idea Mia was still with me. According to her, we'd been separated for over a year, just living together for the kids' sake. While finalizing our divorce, she told him I was emotionally abusive and had gambled away our savings, which was why she needed to protect what little money she had left. I nearly flipped. The table showed him pictures from our vow renewal ceremony 3 days earlier. The color drained from his face faster than our toilet, with that perpetually running problem I never fixed. Turns out Marcus wasn't just some random side peek. He was her high school boyfriend before me. They'd reconnected on Facebook 18 months ago when he commented on some throwback photo she posted. Classic. What he said next changed everything. Mera had convinced him to transfer her $50,000 of his own money to help with her escape plan after she showed him fake bank statements suggesting I was hiding assets. He'd been saving that money for his kids' college fund. Let that sink in. She wasn't just stealing from me, she was scamming this poor schmuck too. I almost felt bad for the guy. Almost. He pulled out his phone and showed me everything. Her story texts, the fake documents, the apartment in San Diego they were supposedly going to share. He even recorded their last phone conversation after he saw my text to her about the financial fraud. In the recording she slipped up and revealed she'd been planning this for over 2 years, since before my dad even passed away. 2 years. By the end of our awkward breakfast meeting, Marcus agreed to testify if needed. We weren't exactly brothers, but we'd both been played by a master manipulator, the enemy of my enemy, and all that. I barely slept that night. The emergency hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. and Joan wanted to meet beforehand to go over our strategy. The kids were quiet at breakfast, Serenity pushing her Cheerios around the bowl, Eric headphones on scrolling through TikTok with that dead inside teenage expression. Normal morning except for the whole mom tried to steal our life savings thing hanging in the air, dropped them at school with awkward hugs and promises to text updates. The hallway smelled like that weird combination of floor cleaner and adolescent anxiety that takes me back to my own high school days. Every time some things never change, even when everything else falls apart. Court was nothing like those dramatic TV shows. The family court was this depressing beige room with uncomfortable chairs and fluorescent lighting that made everyone look like they had jaundice. I spotted Mera and Cannon immediately, her in a conservative navy dress I'd never seen before, clearly purchased for responsible mom vibes, him in a tie that probably cost more than my car payment. Their faces when Marcus walked in behind me and S on our side. Absolutely priceless. Maya's eyes got so wide I thought her contacts might pop out. Cannon started furiously whispering to her while their lawyer, this slick dude with cufflinks that screamed I charge $500 an hour, looked increasingly confused. The judge was a no-nonsense older woman who seemed like she'd seen every dirty divorce trick in the book. When Joan presented the financial evidence, the bank transfers, the secret home listing, and finally Marcus's testimony, about the fake separation story and additional fraud. The judge's expression went from neutral to ice cold, but the real bombshell: Anna had found Maya's secret TikTok account, who knew 41-year-olds were on TikTok, where she'd been documenting her escape plan in vague terms for months. Nothing explicitly incriminating, but tons of videos with captions like "setting yourself free after 20 years, and when he thinks you're planning an anniversary but you're planning a new life," all time stamped. "Before my mother died," proving this wasn't about her being neglected during Mom's illness. The spectacle of a family court judge watching TikTok videos on the court computer while Moreira squirmed might have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. When Moreira finally spoke, she tried the tearful victim routine again, claimed I'd been emotionally distant for years. Debatable, but who isn't sometimes? That she'd felt trapped, that the money was just her ensuring security because she was afraid of confronting me directly. She even tried suggesting Marcus was lying to get back at her for ending their brief affair. The judge wasn't buying it, cut her off mid-soob, and asked about the listing. Mera claims she was just exploring options and never intended to actually sell. The judge pulled up the signed contract with a real estate agent authorizing the sale and asked if that was her signature. It was. When the dust settled, the judge granted my emergency petition to freeze all assets pending full divorce proceedings, gave me temporary full custody of the kids. Mia got supervised visitation until a proper custody hearing, and most importantly declared my inheritance as separate property that Mira had no right to transfer. She also mentioned potential criminal charges for the financial fraud, though that would be up to the DA to pursue. Watching Mira's carefully constructed plan collapse in real time was both satisfying and heartbreaking. 20 years together, and it ended with her sobbing in a beige courtroom while a bored stenographer recorded every word. The aftermath was messy, as real life tends to be. Cannon confronted Moreira in the courthouse hallway. Turns out Big Brother didn't know the full extent of her scheming. He'd been helping her because she convinced him I was financially abusive. When he realized she'd been lying to him too, he completely lost it, called her a disgrace to their family, and walked out. Haven't seen him since. Telling the kids was hard. We sat at our kitchen table with a wobbly leg I've been meaning to fix for months, eating takeout pizza because cooking felt impossible. I stuck to the facts without demonizing their mother. They'd figure out their own feelings about her action. Eric asked practical questions about living arrangements in school. Serenity just wanted to know if Mom still loved them. Gutted me. The next few weeks were a blur of meetings with Joan, more court appearances, and trying to maintain some normalcy for the kids. Mera moved in with Lauren, who apparently chose friendship over loyalty. Despite her earlier apology text, she started her supervised visits with the kids at my sister's house. Anna generously offered her place as neutral territory. Those visits were awkward. At first Mera would bring elaborate gifts, clearly trying to buy back their affection. Eric returned most of them. Serenity kept them but seemed confused about how to feel. The court-appointed supervisor, this gentle older lady who knitted during the visits, made notes of everything. The financial stuff took longer to untangle. $320,000 of my inheritance eventually came back to me through court order. The house stayed in my name since it was inherited property. I never did find my mom's jewelry or dad's watches. Mera claimed she'd sold them months ago. That hurt more than the money. Social fallout was weird too. Some friends ghosted us, both unwilling to pick sides. Others firmly chose Team Moreira or Team Russell. My buddy Steven and his wife basically adopted us into their family dinners when I couldn't face cooking again. Eric's friends' parents started including Serenity in their daughter's mall trips. People show up for you in unexpected ways. Work was a challenge with all the court dates and emotional chaos. My boss was surprisingly understanding. Turns out his first wife pulled something similar, though with much less money. He let me adjust my hours temporarily, which was a lifesaver. With a new single dad schedule, online dating profiles started popping up as suggested friends on Facebook about 2 months after everything went down. Apparently the algorithm sensed my newly single status. Not ready for that circus yet, maybe not for a long time. The kids are adjusting. Eric's grades dropped initially but recovered once we got into a routine. He started spending more time in the garage with my dad's old tools, making these intricate wooden boxes, processing his feelings through sawdust. I guess Serenity went through a phase of calling Mera every night, crying, then not speaking to her for weeks. Now they're finding a new normal. As for Mira, last I heard California dreams are on hold. The court ordered her to stay within 50 miles until the custody arrangement is finalized. Marcus ghosted her after the hearing. She's working at a boutique downtown. Ran into her once at the grocery store. Most awkward 7 minutes of my life standing in the cereal aisle making painful small talk While people openly stared, it's been 6 months now. The divorce was finalized last week much faster than I expected. The judge's final ruling awarded me primary custody, with Mera getting every other weekend and Wednesday dinners. She kept her car, clothes and personal items, while I kept the house inheritance and our joint savings. What was left of it she's required to pay child support, which feels strange since she was always the one who handled our family budget. The house still feels emptier without her, despite the noise of 2 teenagers. Some mornings I wake up and for a split second forget everything that happened, then reality crashes back and I have to start another day rebuilding what's left. Last night Serenity found an old anniversary card from Mira while looking for school supplies in my desk. It had all these promises of forever and growing old together. She asked if I was sad about losing that future. Smart kid asked the toughest question. I told her I wasn't sad about losing a future that was never real to begin with. The mirror, I thought I knew the one who wrote that card didn't actually exist. I'm sad about that, but not about losing the woman who could smile at me over anniversary dinner knowing she was planning to destroy me. Still figuring out this new normal one day at a time. The bathroom sink is leaking again. Eric needs new soccer cleats and Serenity's having friends drama. I barely understand. Life goes on, messy and imperfect, but at least it's honest now. And that TikTok account Mira had still active. Her latest video series is about healing after narcissistic abuse and finding yourself after divorce. The comment section is full of supportive strangers who don't know the real story. I could correct the record, but what's the point? Some people never stop rewriting history. Me, I'm just trying to write a better future for the 3 of us who remain.